Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be reviewing your save games. What's up with that? So last week I asked a bunch of you over in the Discord to post your save games and that I'm going to review them in a video, and I did get quite a few submissions. I'd say we had about 30 or 40 people post their save games, and I've loaded up about 10 right here. All of them are Iron Man, and like I said, preferably Iron Man over in the Discord. Some of them of course are running mods, but I should be able to get all of them started. And as you can see, I've labeled them right here by what the poster said they were, basically the goal of the game, which nation they're playing, blah blah blah, and of course the name of the poster. And these 10 that I've loaded up right here are the ones that I'm gonna try and go through today. Basically, I'm gonna be reviewing your save games. This is not a, saving your disasters type thing like Slavic does and stuff like that, but basically we're gonna be checking out what have you done through your campaign. I'm gonna, sort of rate them based on development, based on map, based on what your goals are, based on the strength of your country and stuff like that. But of course, that is gonna be pretty subjective because it's gonna be according to my playstyle. So even though I say something is good right here, it may not necessarily be objectively good, or if I say something is bad, it might not necessarily be bad. It's just according to me. Everyone has a different playstyle, and at the end of the day, all that matters is that you had fun. So without further ado, let's jump into the save games. Alright, the first save game that we have right here is a Bohemia to Saxony to Germany run by Ramajaya81, and as we can see, the date here is 19th of August 1809. So let's see what Ramajaya right here did in pretty much the entire span of EU4. Alright, here we are in that Bohemia, Saxony, Germany run, and I can definitely say that this is a pretty big Germany right here, although the thing that immediately stands out to me is the border war that we can see right here. Now, obviously, this person has started over in Bohemia. Now, Prague isn't their capital anymore. I would guess it's Berlin or something like that, or maybe even if it's not, it doesn't matter too much, but let's take a look at the alliance situation right off the bat. Okay, so we can see that they're allied to Greece and Italy. Italy formed this run, obviously, and Greece somehow, we don't know if the player did this in this run. Poland and Austria are marches? No, Poland is a junior partner, Austria is a march, and Finland is our march as well. And actually we can go into the subjects tab to see this easier, and we can see that there are quite a few trade companies as well. So we got the White Sea Trade Company, the Baltic, the the Carpathia actually, and he established these as Saxony. Obviously he established this one as Bohemia, and this one as Bohemia too, since it's still, the Czech Muscovy company. But obviously since your capital is over in Western Europe or whatever, you can trade company pretty much everything else. And if I was playing this run, I wouldn't necessarily trade company, these regions right here, even though it's not necessarily wrong to do so. As we can see, they make quite a bit of cash. Also, he's got New Germany, which is a crown colony. Let's see where New Germany is located. It's over in pretty much the New York region of North America. I'm guessing this is maybe something the player wanted to do, or maybe just got it, accidentally in a peace deal or something like that. But okay, this is a pretty strong Germany, although the border war I can say I'm definitely not a fan of. You guys know I like clean borders. Let's move on to the great powers right now. We can see that we have 9,152 development, half of subjects, so subjects are pretty powerful too. Economic hegemon as well, getting these awesome bonuses right here. So that's major points right there for becoming an economic hegemon. Probably my favorite one out of all three of these right here, based on my playstyle, of course, even though the military one might be objectively more powerful. Going on into the government reforms right here, we can see that we're an autocracy. Okay, that's pretty good. Curtail noble privileges, a rare one right there, but of course if the Junkers were too influential, he might have gone with that. Of course, right now into the late game, let's say you continue this run, I would swap over to something more powerful militarily, like strength and noble privileges. That influence is negligible, and you'll gain a little bit of more manpower, even though he's already above 1 million, so he doesn't really need it. Regional councils right here is pretty good for state maintenance. Of course, in the early part of the game you would want to go with something else, but this is pretty good for the late game, I do have to say that. And we can see we have head of the Reformed Church right here. Now obviously he leaned into the whole religious thing, and obviously this player is reformed in this run, and of course we'll get to the religion later, so that's pretty good. Sustained discipline, I'm liking that for Germany. Then we got general estates right here. I would go with a royal decree for +5 more max absolutism right here, but we'll get to max absolutism just in a second. Meritocratic is pretty good. Lachian Proviso is pretty good for the goods produced. The 6 livers of the Republic is also pretty good for years of separatism. L'état c'est moi and legislative houses I have no quarrels with. So let's get to the max absolutism right here first, because we can see that he hasn't gone with that right here. If we can go to the absolutism, it's 99 right now, but max is only 105, which you're gonna be okay. Well, we don't get more than 100 anyway. But if we go into the estates right here, we can see that the player has 100% crownland control and no privileges granted to any of the estates. Now, obviously he could do this, right? You don't really need estates in the late game when you're making so much of everything, but you know, we can see that he's earning a level 1 advisor, level 3 advisor, level 5 advisor over here. So this is definitely not optimized. Going back to the estates, you know, if you give them this for +1 admin points, right? These two things right here are negligible, but you do get -5 max absolutism, which is okay. He'll still be at 100, but if he gives out royal decree right here, it'll be 110, which means he can give another one of those monarch point privileges. So even in the late game, I would keep around, you know, all of the monarch point privileges, which I do think is a little mistake on this player's part right here. You know, increase max absolutism to 115 somehow, give out all 3 monarch point privileges, and you're good to go. But going back to the advisors, this is definitely, you know, a misstep or something like that. Maybe this is the only missionary strength guy he had, so that's why he hired him, you know, couldn't promote him and stuff like that. Maybe he needed these guys specifically, but aside from that, you know, you could definitely go ahead and promote this advisor, get a level 5 guy if you don't really need the missionary strength guy, which it doesn't seem that he needs, so he can definitely go ahead and hire a better one. So that's it for this tab right here. Government, you know, lots of promoted cultures, as we can see, lots of auto-accepted cultures, lots of non-accepted cultures, but that's no big deal. Diplomacy, you know, we already checked that out, got a couple of allies, got a couple of subjects, and this is pretty normal right here. In the economy tab, this is really good right here. I'm super satisfied with the economy, but here's the thing: high money bad, low money good, question mark. Look at this. This player is making 3,300 ducats a month, and he's in the positive by 2,500. That means he could be spending a lot more money at this point, and I'm talking a lot more money. We'll get to that in a second, but inflation is low, nice trade efficiency, decent production efficiency, and you know, tax, I guess it's okay, doesn't really matter in this time frame too much. Army maintenance, you know, it's pretty cheap, obviously. Fleet maintenance, this guy's not too big on boats since it's only 30 ducats. Fort maintenance, no big deal. Diplo expenses, you know, he's just supporting loyalists in New Germany, but this is pretty good right here, although I do think he could be spending more money. We'll get to that later. In the trade tab right here, good trade efficiency, you know, for a landlocked country, not really landlocked, but in this region right here with no control over an end node, I'd say, you know, 40% trade income is pretty decent. You know, by getting a hold of Lubeck or the English Channel or the Italian trade nodes, he could get this up to around 60%, but we have 160% goods produced right here, which is super powerful. Some modifiers as well, but a lot of it is coming down to so many furnaces being, you know, placed because we do have coal provinces at this portion of the game. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with this right here, especially the goods produced. So a thumbs up for that. Over in tech, we can see that he hasn't maxed out on tech, which is no big deal. This is when he ended this campaign, but we're seeing less than 100 innovativeness, which by this point, you know, you would assume you would get 100, but of course no one focuses on innovativeness, so this is not too much of a gripe. In the ideas, we can see that he has kept Bohemian ideas, which is super interesting. I'm guessing mainly for the, you know, imperial authority growth, and we will get to the HRE in a second, but you know, Bohemian ideas, they're good depending on what you want to do, but for a massive blobbing campaign such as this, I'd definitely swap over to German ones and even go to Saxon ones if you want to do HRE Diplo stuff. But economic influence, offensive admin, sort of a weird-ish opener right here to open up with economic. I don't think it's really necessary, maybe for the gold mine and stuff like that, sure, but economic influence, offensive admin, quantity trade, infrastructure, religious, you know, you don't. Oh, he's Hussite actually. Okay, I thought it was Reform, but yeah, if you're going with religious or humanist, I don't think there's a point taking it as the last one. And you know, the order of these is a kind of weird-ish for me. You know, only 2 mill ones right here. Then you got an admin diplo mill, admin mill diplo. So admin, yeah, that's kind of you know, weird-ish right here. Not too many gripes with these ideas right here. Depending on what your goals are, of course, they always vary. But you know, I would pick some different ones. Maybe I'd go with Diplo right here, so you can take more. If you're going with religious, go early and stuff like that. In the Germany missions right here, he has completed some, you know, except for those ones focusing on the Navy, so no real gripes right here. This is pretty good. Nothing to go through here. These are just the policies, and they're all pretty good ones, of course, the ones that you can take. If you want to maximize income even more, I go with this one, the trade efficiency one. You know, this is pretty good right here too. This would be good in the early game, and these right here, I definitely go with this one right here. It's super powerful, and this one is here. This one right here too for the goods produced. These ones right here, not too relevant except for this one right here. Everything is good over here. He is not maxed out on GovCap, but we can see that he has more territories to state. Of course, these are probably, you know, the trade companies, so there's no need to state them. They're already the trade companies, but if they weren't, obviously would state that. since you are under GovCap as well. In the religion, 120% religious unity, culture conversion cost, freedom to preach. This one right here, they're all pretty strong. And I'm seeing a lot of culture modifiers right here. So has this player been culture converting? And in fact, he hasn't been doing too much culture conversion. So I don't really see the point of all these culture conversion modifiers and stuff like that we're seeing here. But going over in the army, 1,600,000 force limit, really good. Discipline is kind of low, I'll admit, for this point in the game. Morale is pretty good. Professionalism is pretty good. Not a lot of combat ability modifiers. So really the best thing right here is the size of the army. Even though the army itself might not necessarily be that strong, you'll just beat them with sheer numbers. We already checked out the subjects. Everything is pretty standard right here, even though I would integrate all of these guys, of course, depending on when you got them, but I would have hoped to have them integrated by the end of the game. And in the estates, we already checked them out. My pointers for here were to give out more privileges. Going back to the trade setup right here, we can see that Saxony is still his main trade node, which I do not recommend for this part of the game. Like we saw, he hasn't really expanded over in Lubeck or in the English Channel or, in Genoa, Venice, or Constantinople, end nodes or nodes that you can make end nodes. So I definitely don't recommend, keeping Saxony as your main trade node. You would want to push it up to Lubeck at least. He has really good control right here. 70% is super strong. So he could definitely route everything over to Lubeck. But we got Lubeck collecting, Vienna to Saxony, to Novgorod right here, Kiev. So, except for the end node, this merchant setup is looking pretty decent. I would not collect in Saxony. I'd put him somewhere else. You don't really have a merchant in Pest right here, so you should definitely tell one of those guys to go over there as far as I can see. But yeah, merchant setup, okay, but I wouldn't collect in Saxony. Army size is pretty good right here. Let's take a look at the force limit. The force limit is, sorry, the combat width. The combat width is 40, so you technically want, stacks of, about 50, 40, something like that running around. So obviously you can get reinforcements from the guys that die. But yeah, these stacks are decent. They just need to be, fixed up a little bit, but I don't really have any gripes with that. With all of that checked out, let's go ahead and take a look at the buildings right here, see what kind of buildings he's built. So let's take a look at the marketplaces. Marketplaces almost everywhere, trade depots pretty much, stock exchanges, so that's pretty good. You definitely have built some in provinces that isn't necessary, but I'm never against any of the trade buildings, so that's pretty good. Lots of town halls, obviously, to manage the governing capacity. Lots of counting houses. This is excellent. That's why production efficiency is so high. Cathedrals aren't really needed, but as we can see, he's built quite a lot of them. And then let's take a look at manufactories. Of course, everything is full, so that's really good. So building wise, everything is excellent. I have no real bad comment right there. So yeah, that's pretty much been Ramajai's save game right here. What do you guys think about this save game in the comments? The only real issues I said I have right here are the border gore, the not giving privileges to estates even in the late game, and you could max out your absolutism even more. And then I had some little quarrels with the trade setup, but aside from that, a super strong Bohemia to Saxony to Germany showing right here by our first save game submitter. What do you think in the comments? With that out of the way, let's move on to the next one. Okay, moving on with the next save game right here, which is Ryukyu on December 12th, 1663 by Sir Gideon. This player did not say if they were going for the Three Mountains achievement. Alright, here we are as Ryukyu in Sir Gideon's game, and if we take a look at the map in the coalition map mode, basically where you can best see the outline of your country, this is what Ryukyu looks like for this player. So obviously Ryukyu starts off on this island right here on Okinawa, and they've expanded a little bit over in Japan in the southern tip. Over here in southeast China, we can see we got Taiwan right here, pretty much the entirety of the Philippines, and about half of the Indonesia region right here. And if we go into the diplomat mode, we can see that this player has some subjects like Berao, Bone right here, Ryukyu on Australia, and stuff like that. So first thing right off the bat here that we can see, and obviously no colonies in North America or anything else like that, but the first thing that I can comment right here on this game, which has been running for about 200 years here as Ryukyu, is that this isn't that much expansion. Obviously we don't know this player's goals, if he was planning on expanding a whole lot, but this isn't that much expansion for about 200 years into the game by this point. Depending on what your goals are, if you're going south down here, you could technically own all of Indonesia, and depending on when and how Ming blew up and stuff like that, you could have expanded a lot more in China and a lot more in Japan as well. Basically by this point, starting as Ryukyu, I would expect a player to own pretty much all of this right here. But aside from that, we of course don't know the player's experience, so let's go ahead and check out the other things in this game. Going on into the great powers list, we can see that he is one tech behind, so obviously he's missing a certain institution, but if he wasn't, he would be around number 6 on the great powers list, which of course, you know, is okay-ish for now. And then if we go on into the government reforms, we can see that he's an autocracy. That's okay, you know, a pretty good government reform right here, but he does have the ability to be an independent daimyo, which you know, depending on what your goals are, sure, it is pretty good for expansion, but I don't think that's his goal. So autocracy, good right here. Compromise with the nobility, sure. Expand a royal court, dope. Curtail clerical privileges is kind of weird-ish, but the religious unity and the admin tech discount is good. Not a common pick right here in this tier, but it's okay. Naval professionalism, obviously for a naval focused gameplay such as this is really good right here, so shout out to that. General estates is pretty good, even though we'll check out absolutism later on. Meritocratic is great. War economy, once again, related to boats slightly, so definitely would go with that. And yeah, I have no quarrels with the government reforms, so these are all pretty decent. Going back into the court right here, we can see that he's running a level 3, a level 1, and a level 2 advisor. Of course, we'll check out the economy soon, so we'll see if that's good. And in the diplomacy tab, we can see that he's allied to Blambangan and Kutai, which are weird picks. There's no need to be allied to these guys, just conquer them. You're right next to them. Ideally, you want to get a big ally to help you out with someone. We can see that Deccan is formed. Persia, you know, Bengal, you could link with some of these guys right here to help you beat up some of these guys right here. So on alliances, the alliances situation I'm not a fan of. Tributaries, just annex them. Ryukyu in Australia, if you're colonizing, sure, that's great. Going over into the economy tab, this is very, very weak income for this portion of the game. We can see that the player is only making 5 ducats a month right here. You know, the income is 85. If we're not looking at the balance, the income is 85, which is pretty low for 200 years into the game. And the expenses to income ratio is pretty good, so he's obviously spending the money that he's making, which he should be doing, but this isn't enough income. Obviously something's amiss right here. You know, trade, not making nearly enough from trade and from production right here. The production efficiency is pretty low. Going over into the trade setup, 40% trade income, pretty standard right here. I don't know if you could optimize the setup any more than this, since he doesn't really have a major control of almost any trade node except for the Philippines and the Moluccas. Goods produced 0 by this point in the game, which, you know, he should have some modifiers for goods produced by this point. And in tech, we can see that he's pretty much good on tech, but he hasn't embraced manufactories. You know, it's already spread, so you could go for some loans or burger loans right here to embrace manufactories, since they have spawned about 13-ish years ago. But overall tech is good. Let's see ideas right here. So he has exploration, expansion, definitely wanted to go colonial right here, but this isn't that much exploring or expanding by 1663, if I am being honest. You know, if you went super early with these, you could have gotten yourself first before the major colonizers over to North America at least, and depending on if you were hopping these islands, you could have gotten yourself to the southern tip of South America right here. Quality is good for the boats as well. Trade is good. You do expect to be present in all of these trade nodes right here. Offensive, that's excellent. So, you know, good idea group picks. I would probably choose, you know, if I went for a colonial Ryukyu campaign, pretty much the same ones right here. So good on idea groups. Missions, of course, Ryukyu doesn't have any unique ones. Decisions and policies, you know, he's got the colonialism and the trade stuff right here. So, you know, nothing, you know, too bad about this. Abolish standardized uniforms. You don't want to do this. You don't want to convert to Buddhism or Islam or an Indic faith. So everything else over here is looking pretty good. He can form Japan. No real need to form Japan if you're going for a Ryukyu game only. Their national ideas are pretty good. In stability and expansion, we can see that he can state a lot more things. So none of this is stated right here. That's a major mistake. Maybe he's lacking on admin points, but all of this right here should be stated for sure. That is why he's not making that much money. If we go into the autonomy page, we can see that, you know, in the places that he can decrease autonomy, which is not a lot, pretty much only the things over here, it has been decreased as much as it can. But once you go ahead and state this up, all of this right here, your income would probably go to like, you know, 105, I'm thinking. So definitely, guys, don't forget to state and lower autonomy. I didn't check that out in the previous guide, the autonomy, but everything looked legit, so there was no need. A very bad religious unity right here right off the bat. As we know, Ryukyu does start off as animist, which is you know, not that good. You would want to flip to something else if you're not planning on converting, but if you're staying animist, you should definitely go ahead and pick up religious and stuff like that, or humanist to help deal with this. This is not very good, and I'm assuming this player is having a lot of trouble with rebels right here. If If we go back, we can see that some rebels are ready to pop off right here, but yeah, you definitely want to get this sorted immediately. In the military tab, we can see discipline is pretty good, morale is pretty good, combat ability is pretty good due to the ideas he's taken, army professionalism is good, land force limit not that high for this portion in the game, naval force limit of course is massive. Obviously he has been building a lot of naval buildings. We can see his navies right here, they are pretty huge. Over in the subjects tab, like I said, annex these guys, there's no need. Oh, actually my bad. So you know, he hasn't stated this because they're trade companies, so the Indonesia trade company and stuff like that, but generally when playing this region, you don't want to trade company stuff over here. I'd recommend when playing in this region, you know, in East Asia, Southeast Asia, depending on what your main trade node is, which should be let's see right here, Nippon, which is super bad actually for it to be your main trade node. You do want to move it as further this way as you can. So maybe Malacca would be the basically end trade node, and you would want to round everything from here over to Malacca. But once again, this is trade company, not something I would do personally. And then over in the estates, we have a pretty standard estate setup right here. We got the monarch point privileges and something else, so I don't really have anything to complain about over here, but you would want to be more than 50% crownland by this point in the game. So definitely you should have done a lot more seizing and a lot more lowering of autonomy. Like I said, the main mistake right here I think is the trade companies right here. But going on to absolutism, max absolutism is 21. If it's not a blobbing campaign, you don't really care about this too much. As we can see, he has lots of privileges that lower it, but if he was planning on blobbing out more massively, then this definitely should be higher. So yeah, definitely a lack of expansion right here, which should have been done in these 200-ish years, and I do think it's a mistake trade companying these things. Going over into the buildings tab, let's take a look at the trade depots or marketplaces or something like that. Yeah, you definitely want to build a lot more of these. There pretty much aren't any built over here, as we can see, only about 5 that I can see. Going into the, you know, courthouses, none have been built, so definitely a lack of focus on buildings. No docks either, no dry docks. What about shipyards? Yeah, a bunch of shipyards. As we can see, he has been focusing on the navy, so we're good on that. Workshops are decent as well. Of course, you could be building a lot more of them. There are so many high value trade goods over in this region. Churches, yeah, churches is okay, but you don't really need these. You've been focusing on them too much when you should have been focusing on workshops. And then manufactories over in China a little bit, but there are definitely a ton that can be built, so definitely a lack of focus on buildings as well. So yeah, if we definitely get a rating system set up here of 3 tiers, you know, good, mid, and bad, I would rate this game unfortunately bad for 1663 as Ryukyu, whereas the previous Germany one I would rate good for that portion in the game. So yeah, definitely don't trade company things over here. You want to state them up, definitely focus on building more buildings as well, and there are for sure lots of expansion opportunities over here. You should have expanded a whole lot more and not only focused on colonizing. That's all I have to say about this Ryukyu campaign. Let's move on with the next one. The next campaign right here is Korea on May 1st, 1689 by Spud. Let's compare it to the previous one because they're, you know, about the same in the time that has passed. Alright, here we are as Korea in 1689, and already right off the bat we can see that there has been quite a lot of expansion. If we take a look at the coalition map mode, we can see that Korea is pretty big on the map, and what's going on over here? Why is Great Britain and everyone else in a coalition? This player has taken the province of this right here in France. I'm guessing this was maybe even a no CB war. We can see the fleet is right here. We'll take a look at where the armies are, but definitely a lot of them are over in France. So, you know, a weird turn for a Korea campaign, sure. There are some provinces over in Africa. I'm guessing this player has been skipping his way over there, but definitely a weird way to go with your Korea campaign. But either way, going back to the main portion of the you know, country right here, lots of expansion over in the Manchuria region, even colonizing up here, and a lot of expansion over in China as well, about half of Japan, which is pretty strong, and a bunch of provinces over here in the Southeast Asia region. So this may even be a tall Korea campaign, and of course we'll take a look at the development as well. But yeah, there's actually a coalition formed right here where Korea is supporting the independence of the 13 colonies in Newfoundland allied to Bengal. So diplomatic situation right here is pretty good, but it is pretty weird, and they're guaranteeing Italy Italy for some reason. Yeah, this is definitely, you know, a crazy-ish campaign if I've ever seen one. But going back over into the Great Powers list, we can see that we are number 2 on the Great Powers list with 2800 development, all institutions embraced, so no complaints right here. This is pretty strong. And going over into the government reforms, we're a celestial empire, so obviously this player is the holder of the mandate at 100 mandate. Lots of celestial reforms passed, so this was a mandate game. Very, very interesting right here. We can see that all of these guys right here are tributaries, in fact, which makes this campaign even stronger. Something that I found out just now. Lots of tributaries in Southeast Asia. The hordes right here. This person tributaried France, ladies and gentlemen, along with Norway, Cleves, Adal, everyone in the Congo region, Jollof. So yeah, this campaign is getting weirder by the moment, but you know, super ballsy move to go ahead and tributary France. This was just you know, I'm guessing look at me, I'm super powerful, this is what I can do. But shout out to that man, that's a real Chad move right there. Either way, moving on down, strengthen noble privileges, Buyakasha, decentralized bureaucracy, strengthen Confucian bureaucracy, the righteous army, general estates, dynastic administration. I wouldn't go with this one right here. I'd go with meritocratic. Lockean proviso is pretty good. Machiavellian. Reign you don't generally want to go with. I would go with something else. But yeah, aside from these two right here, all of the other ones are really good. And yeah, with the being the mandate of having passed so many reforms right here, this even takes the game up a notch even further. So let's go ahead and move on to the government tab right here. Advisors, a level 5, 2 level 3 guys. That's pretty good right here. In the government, you know, culture is accepted, culture is promoted, standard stuff. Diplomacy, we already took a look at it. It's weird, like I said. And in the economy tab, very good income right here, 520 ducats a month. Expenses, 303 ducats a month. So you definitely could be spending a little more here as well. Definitely a lack of focus on trade is what I'm noticing immediately by this point in the game. As Korea, your trade should be more than double of taxation and production combined. So if you're making this much money in tax and production, you should be making around 400 income from trade. So definitely lacking in the trade setup department, but we'll see what that's all about as well. Moving on to the trade, goods produced plus 15% is decent. Like I said, super weak income from trade. We'll take a look at what that's all about. Not behind on tech as Korea, obviously you never would be. And the idea group picks are quality infrastructure, which is good for being the mandate of heaven holder. Exploration, which is weird. I wouldn't really do that as Korea. I'm guessing that was his goal, you know, to get over to France. Offensive, influence, humanist. So decent idea group picks. I wouldn't go with exploration, and I would also go with trade and maybe even economic, which are super important for playing over here in East Asia. Missions, lots of missions completed. Obviously you do want to go down the Korean mission tree. Some of the ones down here are, you know, and over here are the focus of the mandate of heaven holders. So these are pretty much the mandate ones, and he has completed a lot of those as well. So no complaints for the mission tree. These are the policies, pretty standard based on the idea groups that he's picked. Stability and expansion, pretty good. That means he has pretty much everything full stated. That's awesome. Religion, 170% religious unity. He has harmonized pretty much every religion that's conquered. So that's super strong Confucian gameplay right here. Military, we can see almost maxed out on force limit, which is pretty strong. Pretty good morale for this point in the game. Good discipline and stuff like that. Good Navy force limit, you know, building up always almost a force limit. Super strong professionalism, super strong combat abilities. So no complaints about the military either. These are the subjects. Obviously, a lot of them are, you know, tributaries. He's trade companied a lot of the stuff over here, as we can see. And yeah, pretty much all of these guys are tributaries, which if that's what you're going for, I really have no complaints. Estates, really good land control, and you do want to be careful with the estates when playing as the mandate holder, but by this point in the game, you can give yourself some breathing room and at least give out, you know, some monarch point privileges or some other pretty strong privileges. Absolutism, as we can see, max is 105. This player is at 87. Playing with tributaries, you don't really conquer that much, so you could definitely afford lower absolutism and lower max absolutism at the expense of some estate privileges. But yeah, let's go over to the trade setup, because that was my gripe. Pretty much his end node, as we can see, is Beijing, which is actually pretty good for what he's conquered. So he has moved his main trade node over there. And based on the amount of merchants that he has, he is transferring, you know, he's collecting in the Philippines, which it's kind of weird, shouldn't really be done. You would want to move the Philippines over to the Moluccas, to Malacca, then, you know, to Canton, to this, and then up to Beijing. So you definitely want to move all of this back up to China. Hanzhou to Beijing is okay. Beijing Beijing collecting, you don't really need to do that. So yeah, definitely move around your merchant setup. You wouldn't want to move the stuff from China over to Beijing and the stuff from down here over to up there. With you having you know, a presence in so many trade nodes, you would be able to expand down here into your tributaries or in your non-tributaries, and then route all the trade setup up here. So definitely a subpar trade setup. That's why you need trade when you're blobbing out this much. But aside from those trade mishaps, let's take a look at the buildings as well. We can take a look at the stock exchanges. So definitely lots of them being built in the estuary and trade center provinces. That's pretty good. Everything is legit over here. Let's see some dry docks, no need. Shipyards, lots of them have been built obviously in preparation for the invasion over in Europe. Town hall, obviously you do want to get a bunch of these up. This is pretty good right here. Universities, some have been built, especially in Korea, obviously. Production buildings, definitely great focus on production buildings. So you know, training fields, we got some conscription centers as well, churches of course, so manufactories, lots of them as well. So really no complaints on that building setup right there. It's just that the trade setup is what's crippling you right here. Nowhere to lower autonomy, so that's pretty strong as well. So yeah, definitely if you picked up trade ideas for this campaign, and if you expand a little bit more down here instead of tributing some of these guys, income would be insane. So pretty much the only complaint I have about this campaign is the lack of you know, trade income. Everything else aside from that is really good. So with only a couple of minor mistakes here and there, I'm gonna give this campaign a rating of good. And that wraps this one up as well. And with that Korea game, I think that's about all the time we have for today. I thought I'd be able to go through around 5 or 6 of them, but obviously I need about 10 minutes to review a save game, so we did manage to only go through 3, even though I had 10 ready for today. But yeah, let me know what you think about you know, these save game reviews in the comments below. And of course, if you want your save game reviewed, make sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment as well. And post your save games in the Save Games for Vids channel. Of course, it should be Iron Man. Just let me know which country you're playing, and that's pretty much it. And of course, I'll be reviewing them in the order that they were posted in. I got about these right here to go, and then about 20 or 30 more after that. But of course, if you guys enjoy these videos, we might make them into a semi-regular or even a regular thing. So yeah, let me know what you think about save game review. If you want yours reviewed, post it in the Discord, and eventually I'll get around to it. But yeah, if you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/RedHawkLive, and if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel. Link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like. It really helps out a lot. And if you like the content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them, and you can become a member today and join the Discord and post your save game. Link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.